Your 30s can look more stable from the outside. But for many people, they feel heavier on the inside. You may be earning more now, more experienced, more capable, more respected, but somehow, life feels less flexible. The bills are bigger. The expectations are bigger. The decisions are more expensive. And the mistakes last longer. That is what makes your 30s different. In your 20s, a mistake can still feel temporary. In your 30s, a mistake can become a weight, a long payment, a lifestyle you have to maintain, a financial pattern that follows you into the next decade. That is why money feels different here. Not because life is over, but because choices start becoming structured, and structure gets harder to undo. Many people enter their 30s thinking they are finally becoming secure, but in reality, some are only becoming more expensive to maintain. That is the danger. A life that looks more established, without actually becoming stronger. So this is not a video about perfection. It is about pressure and the mistakes that quietly make your 30s heavier than they need to be. Mistake 1. Building an expensive life too early. The first mistake is simple, but very costly. Building a life that becomes too expensive to carry. Your 30s often come with the strong urge to look established, to live like a real adult now. Better apartment, better car, better furniture, better neighborhood, better vacations, better routines, better looking success. None of that sounds unreasonable. That is why this mistake is so common. It does not look reckless. It looks normal. It looks like progress. But the problem is not always the quality of what you buy. The problem is the weight of what you commit to. Monthly payments, higher fixed costs, higher maintenance, higher expectations, less flexibility, less room to recover, less room to slow down. A lot of people in their 30s are not financially weak because they earn too little. They are financially strained because their life became too heavy too early. A more expensive life can look impressive, but it also creates pressure that follows you every month. And once your normal becomes expensive, peace becomes harder to keep. Mistake 2. Carrying more responsibility without real structure. The second mistake is more subtle. In your 30s, responsibility increases. Rent or mortgage, family pressure, relationship decisions, children for some people, aging parents for others, career expectations, more people depending on you, more things that need stability. But many people enter this stage with income that grew faster than their structure. They work more, they earn more, but they still do not really know where their money goes. They still do not have margin. They still do not have a reliable emergency fund. They still avoid planning. They still live month to month emotionally, even if the salary is better. That is dangerous in your 30s. Because the cost of chaos is higher now. A weak system in your 20s feels messy. A weak system in your 30s feels heavy. It affects relationships. It affects stress. It affects sleep. It affects decision making. It affects how safe you feel in your own life. At this stage, budgeting is not about being restrictive. Saving is not about being boring. Structure is not about being obsessed. It is about carrying adulthood without breaking under it. Mistake 3. Confusing visible progress with real stability. The third mistake is psychological. In your 30s, a lot of people want visible evidence that they are doing well. They want proof that they are no longer figuring life out. So they chase visible progress, titles, lifestyle upgrades, social proof, cleaner image, bigger signals. But visible progress is not always real stability. You can look established and still feel financially fragile. You can have a good job and still have very little room to breathe. You can look successful online and still feel nervous every time bills show up. That is the trap. Real stability is quieter. It is savings. It is low pressure. It is lower fixed costs than your ego wants. It is room for mistakes, room for rest, room for change. But those things do not always look impressive. So many people in their 30s accidentally build a life that photographs well, but carries badly. And that becomes one of the biggest emotional costs of adulthood. The emotional reality of your 30s. To understand these mistakes, you have to understand your 30s emotionally. This is often the decade where life starts asking for more from you. More consistency, more patience, more responsibility, more resilience, more maturity. And at the same time, many people still feel unfinished inside. They still compare, still doubt themselves, still want proof, still want relief, still want to feel like they are catching up. That emotional mix affects money deeply. When you feel behind, you upgrade too early. When you feel pressure, you avoid looking closely at the numbers. When you feel insecure, you spend to look more established. When you feel tired, you choose convenience over structure again and again. That is why your 30s are not just about earning more. They are about becoming honest enough to stop using money as a way to regulate identity, fear, and exhaustion. Why these mistakes hurt more in your 30s? These mistakes hurt more now because the recovery is different. In your 20s, you can still tell yourself, I have time. In your 30s, time starts feeling more real. Not because it is too late, but because consequences become more visible. Debt feels heavier. Weak savings feel riskier. Financial chaos feels less romantic. A lifestyle trap feels harder to reverse. And the emotional cost grows too. because you are not only trying to survive anymore, you are trying to build a life that can hold. A life that can survive interruptions. A life that does not collapse every time something unexpected happens. That is why mistakes in your 30s are not only expensive in money, they are expensive in nervous system pressure, in lost margin, in reduced choice, in the quiet feeling that your life looks more stable than it actually feels. What to do instead? So what actually helps in your 30s? First, stop making your life heavier just because it looks more adult. A mature life is not the same as an expensive life. Second, build structure that can hold real pressure. Know your fixed costs. Know your weak spots. Build an emergency fund. Create margin on purpose. Third, stop rewarding every income increase with a lifestyle increase. Let some of your growth become strength, not just appearance. Fourth, protect flexibility like it matters, because in adulthood, flexibility is power. Low pressure is power. A lighter baseline is power. Fifth, define success by stability, not presentation. A life that is easier to carry is better than a life that looks more impressive but leaves you tense all the time. What matters most by the middle of your 30s? By the middle of your 30s, you do not need to impress everybody. You do not need the perfect image. You do not need a life that proves something every day. But it helps if you have financial steadiness. It helps if your life can survive bad months. It helps if you are not trapped by your own fixed costs. It helps if your stress is lower than your salary suggests. It helps if you know how to live without turning every success into a new burden. Your 30s are not about looking fully complete. They are about becoming more durable, more honest, more stable, more able to carry real life without constantly performing success. Closing. In the end, the mistakes that hurt in your 30s are rarely dramatic at first. They look normal, reasonable, understandable. That is exactly why they are dangerous. An expensive life that looked like progress. A lack of structure that hid behind a better salary. A polished image mistaken for real stability. These things do not always break you overnight. They simply make life heavier, month after month. And one day, you realize you are earning more, but carrying too much. That is the moment many adults wake up. Not when they have nothing, but when they have built too much, without enough room to breathe inside it. So if you want a better financial life in your 30s, do not only ask, how do I earn more? Ask, what kind of life am I building around what I earn? Because real adulthood is not a life that looks fully upgraded. It is a life strong enough to carry reality without falling apart. Thank you for listening and for staying with me until the end of this video. Please subscribe to the channel for next video.